Good
All
afternoon,
right.
everybody.
Oh, go
Sorry,
ahead.
over to you.
Sure. I was welcome everyone for day 4 of our 4-day event, and I hope you've gotten a lot out of this. And today we're going to be talking about mind-body and the mind-body-soul connection and that sort of thing. Some great information. I just want to remind everyone, stay on till the end of the call because we're going to be talking about the bonuses. That are going to be available. We'll talk about that at the end, maybe right before the Q&A. And then also for the Q&A, don't feel like you have to wait till the end. We will address them at the end, but if something pops in your mind, just like put it in the Q&A box right off the get-go. And yeah, so again, I'm Deepak Saini. I'm a health, performance, and longevity coach. So what does that mean? I help people achieve exceptional results in their health goals, whether that be weight loss, energy, sleep, or even those few of us who want to join me on the journey to be a healthy and wealthy 100-year-old centenarian. So everywhere in between there. So that's what I work on my clients with. And before we get started, I'll let Dr. Carr introduce herself.
Thank you, Deepak. I am Dr. Shabnam Das Carr, a functional medicine consultant. And so this is day 4. And before we move ahead, I just want to state that I'm not a specialist in any of the things that we're going to discuss today. I'm not trained as a teacher in any of that. So Deepak and I will share some of the strategies that we use for our patients, clients, for ourselves. And I would actually love to hear from all of you what you do for your personal, your personal care. And Mikhail will probably join in as well. So,
maybe I can just jump in then. So yeah, maybe not in the Q&A box. Let's leave that for questions. But maybe in the chat box, if you want to all the way through the presentation, put in what you do for self-care and what have you. That'd be great. We'll be happy to. I'll check into that. Also, I just want one other thing I was going to mention earlier and I forgot, but if you like any of the topics that we've talked about here during this 4-day series, or maybe something additional that you're interested in sort of the health and wellness realm, please put something in the chat or reach out to us afterwards or what have you. Maybe it's on biohacking something or something getting more in depth on the topics. Again, with an hour we're just high level, but if you're interested, and you tell us you're interested, we might do bonus ones or do another series down the road. So just want to put that out there for everyone who's watching either live or going to see the recording at a later time. So sorry, Dr. Carr, to interrupt. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Deepak. That was very important. So I'm going to start with the screen share. I'm always afraid of, someday it's not going to work. Okay, so this is day 4. Now, one question which we have asked many times is, how do we know we are stressed? So Deepak, I'll let you answer that, and maybe we'll have some people joining in, because I'm going to talk about how, as a physician, I would look at stress, which is quite different in the sense that we don't even have all the tools available now. So Deepak, how would you know if you are stressed or someone you know is stressed?
Sure, great question. So I'll talk to me personally. So I know I'm stressed. There's a number of ways. First of all, as we've alluded to through all these all the previous days, stress comes in many different forms, and different things can stress our body. For me personally, I know I'm stressed when either I have joint pain or inflammation. That's a stressor from some particular cause for me individually, or I know if I get sort of a pain. I'm not one who's prone to migraines or headaches. I never get those. But if I'm getting a little bit of a tingly, sort of the back of my eyes type of thing, I know it's time. I've worked too hard. I've probably stressed out my eyes by looking at screen or lighting or thinking too hard. That's for me. But probably the number one thing is where I can tell that I'm stressed is my reaction to interaction with other people. So whether that be something that my kids may say or do that triggers me, or my spouse, if I wasn't always like this, by now recognizing myself, that how I react to it is a great indication of the stress that I'm holding on to. In other words, if I react poorly to that external stimulus, that means I'm stressed and I need to handle that. And I have to admit, and we'll probably come back to it later with the steps I take now to manage my stress. It's greatly improved. It's always a work in progress, but much better than it used to be. And then also, I guess, lack of sleep, is also is a stressor. And I guess, other people have different things. Like my wife, she gets headaches if she's stressed, and many of my clients, some people when they're stressed and they know they're just eating too much or eating the wrong foods, and they're reaching for it as a response to that stress. So it's very individual for many people, but how I know I'm stressed and kind of what I generally see.
Thank you, Deepak. So some of the things that people usually say when they are stressed is, one is sleep, and you mentioned that. Another thing is they feel that, their heart rate is faster, so faster pulse rate, they feel the palpitation, the heart beating, or they feel that they have, higher breathing rate, they're like kind of shallow breaths, or some people have said they feel their, teeth are clenched. And sometimes you'll realize that, when as a part of maybe a yoga practice or meditation, when you are asked to relax your body, that was one of my experiences. I realized my body is so tensed and like I'm all bunched up together. And that is something we don't realize unless we're doing something that counters that, right? So some people will say that they never feel stressed. And this is what something I talked about yesterday as well. So sometimes you may not feel you're stressed, but your body may be interpreting it differently. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on the problem, Deepak, because I want to talk more about the solutions in the time that we have. So again, this is, is it allostatic load, HPA dysfunction, adrenal fatigue? What is the term people use? Now, adrenal fatigue is something which a lot of people are familiar with probably, but if you've told your physician, this is adrenal fatigue, I wonder whether this is adrenal fatigue. Some of you may have got some eye rolling. So adrenal fatigue is not a medically correct term because it's not just your adrenals which respond to your stress. So the term we like to use is called allostatic load, and HPA axis dysfunction is also another medical term. So basically, what is allostatic load? It is the wear and tear on the body which grows over time when the individual is exposed to repeated or chronic stress. And this comes from the work of Dr. Bruce McEwen. Dr. McEwen's done a lot of work and he's written some books as well. And I think the term allostatic load is easier for most people to understand and most people to relate to. So it's basically the wear and tear on your body. And this is something which I talked about in response to a question from one of you. What are the different ways we measure allostatic load? Now you can see everything included in that. And again, I must specify that what is included in that list is what was looked at in this particular research paper. There are a whole lot of other ways to look at stress as well. And on day one, Karim brought up heart rate variability. That's much easier to measure as well. I think there are a whole bunch of apps and all that. You can use your phone's camera to measure your heart rate variability. So there are different ways of measuring. Why I focused on this slide is because I always like to quote, medical literature. But my point is, these are not the only measures, but these are some of the important ones. And I talked about all of them before. My point is, all of these are available through your healthcare. If you're in Alberta or in India, you can go to a lab and get them done. But at this point in time, because of the COVID-19 situation, obviously, other than doing a waist-hip ratio and measuring your blood pressure at home, if you have an instrument, there isn't all these things that you can do. But at the same time, can we just assume that in general levels of stress are higher, or maybe let's put it differently, levels of stress are different now than ever before in our lives? So what are the different strategies that I would like to talk about today? So these are the 4 that I'm going to talk about. Of course, there are lots more. Rethinking stress, the relaxation response, expressive writing, and gratitude. Deepak, would you like to just put in a few comments right now before I move ahead with the strategies?
Let's get into the strategies, and I'll comment as we go along. Okay.
So rethinking stress is something that I came across just at the end of last year. So for many, many years, I've been talking, and I went back to check some of my PowerPoints, and I realized some of my PowerPoints are about 5-6 years old, where I was talking about allostatic load and HPA axis dysfunction and how your brain cells are going to die and all those things. But this is research that came out of, and I've just attached 2 screenshots. So this is free available resource from Stanford, and we are going to post the link to the resource. What they did is they put 2 sets of people, one set of people who watched videos which told them that stress is killing you, stress is bad for you, and the other set of people watched videos which told them that stress enhances their performance. So as you can see, and all these resources are available for free on that link, and I will share that link with all of you. So another screenshot from one of the videos, I like these terms a way lot more than, you know, how stress is killing you. Mental toughness, deeper relationships, heightened awareness, new perspectives, a sense of mastery, greater appreciation for life, an experience of meaning, and strengthened priorities. So what they did basically, and how did my screen, my slide got advanced? I didn't realize that. So basically and you can go through the course yourself. So what does Dr. Alia Crum is one of the researchers of this, and you'll come across her work on that. I think there's a TED talk as well that she has talked about all this. So what she says is, first of all, acknowledge your stress. So what are you stressed about? Is it your family you're stressed about? Is it that in relation to work, you're getting exposed to the COVID virus risk? Is it that you're concerned about your loved ones who are probably not here with you? How are you going to take care of them? So once you acknowledge your stress, what happens at sort of a neurobiological level is, from your sort of the lower brain centers, once you acknowledge your stress, your higher brain centers like the prefrontal cortex, so that is the front part of your brain, which is also called the CEO of your brain, or that is the higher centers. That is the part of your brain which is involved with goal setting, achieving your goals, impulse control, a very big thing. So all those higher functions that humans are known for are the functions of the prefrontal cortex. Besides stress, or rather reframing stress, I just wanted to mention 2 other things which have a huge impact on the prefrontal cortex function. One is lack of sleep. The second is alcohol, and of course the third is habit-forming drugs. So those, everyone knows about those things, but I just one more added benefit is, if you are someone who wants to have better brain function and longevity, of course for long-term health, your brain has to function well. So your prefrontal cortex is something that you value a lot, and those are the things that impact your prefrontal cortex as well. So going back to rethinking stress. So once you acknowledge your stress, what is the next step? The next step is own your stress. So one of the things that Dr. Alia Crum and her group of researchers talk about is, we are stressed about things we care about, right? We care about our family. We care about, how we do in life. We care about success. So that is the reason we are stressed about those things. And the third step is use your stress to enhance whatever you're doing. And I'm not going to go into the details because I'll send all those resources. In fact, Dr. Crum has written a recent article in the New York Times. I'll send a link to that as well. So this was written around the COVID time. So it still remains so relevant. And this rethinking stress is like, whenever I've shared this idea since I came to know of it, people feel way more excited about knowing how stress is not killing them, and how they can use stress in different ways to enhance their performance and their life. So before I move on to the relaxation response, Deepak, any comments on rethinking stress?
Well, yeah, I think just to build on your last point there, we talked about fasting, we talked about movement and exercise, and could be heat exposure, could be cold exposure. These are all stressors to your body that in the small dose can help benefit us for whatever our goals may be: health, longevity, etc. So sometimes the stress it's in the dose itself. So I think we're really talking here. Those are acute stressors, and I think we're talking more of it's the chronic stress that really is detrimental to people's health performance.
So just stating this again, we will post the link to the Stanford website, which has all the videos, and you can do the course yourself. I have done the course, but full disclosure, I don't use it as often as I should. I have even put reminders on my calendar to go and review the stuff, but I haven't been doing it. But anyway, that's one resource that you can use. So the next strategy that I recommend to my patients and clients is what is called the relaxation response. So the relaxation response, this research comes from Dr. Herbert Benson. So Dr. Benson is a cardiologist by background, cardiologist at Harvard, and he is the head of the Benson Henry Institute for Mind-Body Medicine in Boston. What he did, and this was years ago, so this was, I think the first studies he did was in 79, where he looked at, what is the response that people can elicit, which can bring down their blood pressure, their pulse rate, their oxygen, all those, all those different things. And I'll definitely post a link on how to elicit a relaxation response. So this is the reason why, like I said, sometimes people will say, oh, what do I do for relaxation? I take my dog out for a walk. Yeah, that's wonderful, no doubt. But at that point in time, I am not sure your breathing rate would go down, your pulse rate would go down, so blood pressure would go down, or oxygen consumption would reduce. So when we are talking about a relaxation response from a medical viewpoint, these are the things we are looking for. So how can you, I'm really sorry, I really don't know why my slides are getting advanced before I do them. So what are the different ways of eliciting a relaxation response? Meditation, mindfulness, these are some of the top ones. Then there is Tai Chi, Qigong, prayers, a lot of different ways to elicit the relaxation response. But relaxation response has been studied a lot in the medical world. So they found that people who elicit relaxation response on a regular basis, one of the first studies Dr. Benson did was on people with high blood pressure. And this ties back to hypertension, high blood pressure as a higher risk for COVID-19 I was talking about before. So one of the non-pharmaceutical ways to lower your blood pressure would be to elicit a relaxation response more often. Another, so I started talking about mindfulness. So what is mindfulness-based stress reduction, or MBSR, or mindfulness? And different people define it differently. I like Dr. John Kabat-Zinn's definition because he was one of the pioneers of moving, the meditation practice. Now, every religion has a meditation practice, but some of us like spirituality. We are not so fond of the, the religious rituals and things like that. So when we say meditation, sometimes people get the wrong idea that you're expected to change a religion or something. No, it's nothing like that. So Dr. John Kabat-Zinn he's one of the pioneers of moving that, the religious meditation practices into a more secular format. And his center at the University of Massachusetts in Boston has done a lot of research on using my MBSR. So he's someone who's known as, the father of MBSR, so to say. So, but he's the person who has moved it from an esoteric sort of religious practice, which probably just a few people do, to something that has been medically tested and used in a lot of different situations. So that is the reason. And why do I like Dr. Kabat-Zinn's definition is the term non-judgmentally. So a lot of people, when I recommend, have you ever tried meditation? Just try with a guided meditation online for 5 minutes and see how you feel. One of the comments I get is, oh, I can't get my mind to sit still. So I have to tell them, it's not, you don't have to get your mind to be still, because asking the mind to be, to be still and not have any thoughts is like asking the heart to stop beating. But what you have to do, and again, a lot of what I'm saying, if you are a regular meditator, you know what I'm talking about. If you have never gone through any of these practices before, I would recommend that just try it out and see. Because what I'm talking about is like just words. Unless you've experienced it yourself, you won't know really what it is that we talk about mindfulness. And again, sorry, I always have to apologize for the medical stuff, but this is a study done quite a while ago. So this was, what they did is, because this is so relevant to the COVID-19, I decided I have to show this slide because sometimes pictures speak louder than words. So what they did is, you can see that there's a control group and there's a meditation group. So they put two sets of people, one group of people who were not given 8 weeks on meditation practice, and the second group went through 8 weeks of meditation practice, which is usually for half an hour to 45 minutes every day. And at the end of the 8 weeks, both the groups were given the influenza vaccine. So as you know, the vaccine, for it to work, it has to produce antibodies. Now, what they found is those people who had gone through the 8 weeks meditation practice, their levels of influenza antibodies, again, this is not a COVID-19 study. Back then, there was no COVID-19. But at the same time, what it shows is that your immune response can be enhanced by something as simple as doing a meditation practice. No medications, nothing at all. So the big difference between the two groups was one group had meditated for 8 weeks and the other group had not. I thought this is pretty profound. And before I move on to expressive writing, Deepak, any comments, any thoughts on this?
Well, I think it's very, again, as you mentioned, very relevant to, the situation we find ourselves in, right now in March and April of 2020 with this pandemic going on. And, I think anything, as we mentioned, all 3 days thus far, anything that reduces, our stress and thus inversely, boosts our immunity is going to really help us fight any infection, including COVID-19, should we be exposed to it. So, I think, mindfulness meditation, plays a role, as does sleep, as does nutrition, as everything else we've talked about during this series. So,
thank you. So the next strategy that these are all strategies that I recommend to my patients, and I know many of my patients are in the audience and they know that I've talked about these things before. Expressive writing. So this comes again from the work of Dr. James Pennebaker from the University of Texas at Austin. So what he suggests is, and this was it started off, I think, as just a PhD project for one of his students. So writing about important personal experiences in an emotional way for as little as 15 minutes over the course of 3 days brings about improvements in mental and physical health. Now, the question is, does it have to be 3 days? Can it be more? Does it have to be 15 minutes? Can it be more? We don't have the answers for all of that. This is what they did when they did the research. And 3 days, I think, was because they wanted the people who are taking part in that research to come to the center and do it. So you can do it for 5 days, 3 days, but the most important thing, and again, I will post the links to Dr. Pennebaker's, method of writing. The most important things are, number one, you can do it first thing in the morning, because some people call that the brain download. And the other thing is, you don't have to even read what you're writing. Excuse me. You don't have to worry about the grammar, syntax, language, nothing. You don't even have to give it to somebody else to read. You just have to write it down. And the other question I get is it okay for it to be in a digital format? Can you type this, or should you write it in longhand? Again, I don't think anyone has compared the two different methods, but some people, and again, I'm not an expert at this, some people have suggested, and I have personally experienced that as well, that when you write something in longhand, you process your thoughts better, or maybe you process them differently versus typing on digital media. But the point is, you need to do it. Whether, typing works better for you or writing in longhand works better for you, whatever works. And this expressive writing strategy is something that people have used in very, severe conditions like abuse, then, PTSD. But my point is, a lot of my patients who would never sit for meditation or never try any of the guided apps or any of those, they find expressive writing extremely beneficial. They have, like many of them have told me how wonderful the whole experience was. And I don't think there is a wrong way or a right way of doing it. But then again, my point is you don't even have to read it again if you don't want to read what you've written. You don't have to bother with grammar or any of that. And I'm stating again, I will post Dr. Pennebaker's method, the link to his university website. Sorry, again, I don't get it. Is this the Zoom, this thing that people are talking about? Someone gets in and gets control of their, the slides. So expressive writing, rethinking stress, relaxation response, and mindfulness being one of the ways to elicit a relaxation response. These are the things I talked about. Last of all,
Dr. Carr, before you move on, if you could just go back to the previous slide. Yeah, a couple thoughts on this. So I do believe there have been, I don't have them in front of me, but I do believe there have been studies showing that writing longhand and sort of that mind-body connection does help elicit a more favorable response than electronically. So that'd be the first thing. I do believe there's been studies on that. I guess second, very interestingly enough, people on this call are going to be from all different jurisdictions, and I know I have friends who live in different jurisdictions, and their schools are just closed. There's no support at all from the school system. I'm fortunate enough that my kids, although school is closed, they are having a little bit of direction provided by the teachers via Zoom calls, etc., and have assignments, so they know they have something to work on, that type of thing. So interestingly enough, last week, my older daughter, who's in grade school, one of her assignments was actually to do, it's also, practicing your spelling and your handwriting, but actually with this time to write a letter to someone that you can't see right now during this crisis we're through. In my daughter's example, she chose her grandparents who we can't see right now. So she wrote I don't know if it's necessarily an expressive letter, but she wrote out how she's feeling about the situation, why she misses them, etc. So multi skills there from the school's point of view. But I think it's very important, and probably more people can do this when they're struggling with things. And in a lot of therapy settings as well, it's from abuse or substance abuse or physical abuse, etc. Writing these comments out, and then sometimes all the negative thoughts, and then even crumpling the ball of paper up and throwing away, or burning the paper to release that energy out into the universe. So this has been used in a lot of different modalities. So I think it's very can be very, very powerful. I wouldn't say I do that myself per se, but when we get to, I guess maybe later on, what we individually do for practice, I'll maybe circle back to expressive writing, or how I sort of do it anyway. So.
Thank you, Deepak. Yeah, that's the writing and the digital format is something that I have been, talking about for a while. And yes. So last of all, this is and I posted this on Facebook today, actually. So the Greater Good Science Center at UC Berkeley, they have a ton of free resources. And I had sent, I think few weeks ago, a questionnaire on gratitude. So this is from their daily quarantine questions. What am I grateful for today? So I'll just pause for a few seconds for all of you to think about what is it that you're grateful for today? And I'm going to think about it myself. Okay, so in case you haven't come up with at least 3 things already, maybe this is something you might want to do at the end of this webinar. So many things to be grateful for. I'm grateful that the sun is up today, because if the sun doesn't come out, if it's a cloudy day, my mood is not as good. So who am I checking in on or connecting with today? So all these questions were also questions to myself. So I've decided I'm going to put more effort into connecting and reaching out to some of my older relatives in India. What expectations of normal am I letting go of today? As Dr. Hinshaw, who's the Chief Medical Officer of Alberta, says, this is a new normal. So what is the new normal for you? And what are you expecting to be different in this day because of the COVID-19 situation? Is it that you are missing some particular food that you can't go out to buy now? is that food or that particular whatever it is that you want, is that really necessary? You can ask yourself that. How am I getting outside today? Deepak, that brings us to what you had talked about yesterday. Not all of us have the freedom to go out. And if you can't go out, in fact, that was what I commented on this when I sent it to a lot of my friends. Can you sit down somewhere and visualize walking through a forest? Just close your eyes and imagine you're in the middle of a forest. The wind is blowing and there's bright sunlight outside. So how am I getting outside today? But if you have the option of going outside, why not do that? How am I moving my body today? We talked a lot about that yesterday. What beauty am I either creating, cultivating, or inviting in today? I mean, a lot of all these 6 questions, they seem very simple, but it's quite profound, I think. What do you think, Deepak?
Yeah, and there's a lot of these type of lists, circulating on social media and everything. And this list is a perfect list, and I've seen a lot of others are, very similar type of questions. So I think in general, again, I'm going to keep going back to this. Everything that we've talked about today and these last 4 days are arguably things that we should always be doing all the time for our health and our mental health and our physical and spiritual health. But now in this greater time of this time of crisis, now's the time to dial it in a little bit and really focus and try and, and I think when we're all said and done and, social isolation has been lifted and we can go on back to whatever the new normal is, that we have a better appreciation of our health and our mind body type of thing. So I think this is a great list, and these are some, not all these things I do every day, but certainly many of these things. And I don't know, maybe this is a good segue to discuss and not that what any of us do is right or wrong, but maybe a good time to share what we personally do and maybe help people with their think about what they can implement with themselves. What do you think about that, Dr. Shobna?
Oh yeah, definitely. So I think this was the last slide in my, So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And so Deepak, would you like to share what are the things you do for your personal care in terms of, stress management and all of this?
Sure. So I'll just go through a typical day, and it'll touch on a lot of things that we've definitely talked on today, and then also kind of, I guess, throughout the 4 days. So maybe not a typical day. Let's go what I'm doing right now with this pandemic, this COVID-19 right now. So I'll get up and I don't normally do this, but right now I'm trying, because we're both at home, the kids are at home, we're trying to manage the limited resources of computer time. The kids need the computer for school. My wife needs to work. I need to do events like this and my business and meet with my clients, et cetera. So I typically get up and the first thing I'll do, I wouldn't normally do this, but I'll get on the computer and do some work for a couple hours, have my coffee. Then when we switch, I'll take, give the kids breakfast, et cetera. Then I take care of my physical. So I'll do some exercise. I'll stretch, as I alluded to yesterday, and then maybe help the kids intermittently with homework at the same time as they roll into that. And then I'll do, so I'm a big, trying to be as efficient as possible. So I'll stack modalities. So I mentioned I'm fortunate enough that I have a infrared sauna. So then after my exercise and my stretching, I'll go sit in the sauna, and that's where I'll do my meditation. And I'm going on just a couple weeks away from being 3 years consecutive every day. So I'll go in and I'll do a 15-minute meditation. Nothing too crazy, just what I can get. Even if I'm sitting in the sauna for much longer, I still kind of keep it to 15 minutes meditation. I can go without any apps or anything like that, but I actually like, there's one, and I've tried many, and I think it's important if you're inclined to use an app to try different things. What flavor do you like? I particularly like Calm, and they have one of their settings is called Calm Light. So basically, it just sort of gets you into relaxing and thinking, and then it leaves you alone, just music and birds and stuff, and then it sort of lets you know at the end when you're done, so you're kind of with yourself. And I as I'm going through that, I kind of say a couple mantras in my head, but that doesn't mean my mind doesn't wander to something else, which, as you alluded to earlier, that's totally fine. I just try and bring myself back But what I actually find through meditation is I get a lot of great ideas. Things that were way in the back of my memory is like, oh, right, I was supposed to call that person or follow up on, this or what have you. That comes to me. Or sometimes just brand new ideas. I find that when I'm in that, we mentioned on day one, Kareem, who talked about sleep on day one, master Vipassana meditator. I'm nowhere near that level, but I find even just my little bit of 15 minutes and just that level of relaxing and getting my brainwaves into a different state, sometimes different ideas finally come together and an idea presents itself. And some of these have led to business opportunities or even things with the family or what have you. So and then after that, shower, what have you, get on with kind of the rest of my day. And then after lunch or after client meetings and that sort of thing, sort of later afternoon, here again, it's still snow outside where I live, but on a nice sunny day or it's not too cold, get the kids bundled up and we'll go outside, we'll go for a walk, we'll play in the snow, etc. And we'll come in, do some other things, and then have dinner. We try to have dinner as a family, and I think I alluded to that earlier in the series, that if there's one meal where we all get together and have maybe that little bit heavier meal, if you will, it's usually dinner time. It's a little bit challenging right now because again, the computer is a finite resource right now. So we're finding that we are maybe not quite, or at least one of us is with the kids and one of us is trying to get work in at that time. And then again, trying to go to bed at a reasonable time, get that extra sleep. I guess going back to the beginning of what I should have said is I've been not setting an alarm and just letting my body wake me up normally, or when my body wants to get up, and trying to get a little bit extra sleep. Get the kids to bed on time so they get extra sleep. They're not having to get up. We're letting them get up when their bodies tell them to get up, and starting our day whenever they get up. And then the last thing I do, or one of the last things I do before bed, is I write not only just grateful all the time for all the little things, sunshine, fresh air, food, the way of shelter, etc. But then one of the last things to do is I write a gratitude journal. So that's kind of where it's not quite expressive writing as I would say, but I actually physically write out not just gratitude, but things, successes I had today, challenges I had today, things that moved me forward in other aspects of my life, but at least 3 things that I'm grateful for. Sometimes it's more, and I really appreciate the little things. And I find, but actually by writing it out and having to think about it, I could say I'm grateful for the sunshine. I'm grateful for food on the table. I'm grateful for shelter. I could say those things every day. I'm fortunate to have a very blessed life, but it's the little things that you don't always think of, that you can take for granted sometimes, that I tend to write down, like that funny thing my daughter did, or the little funny dance she did earlier in the day, or reading her a story and then she set up some funny comment or something like that. They tend to really, not always, but probably more than 50% tend to revolve around something that the kids did, or some interaction I had with the kids, or something that my wife special that she did for me, over and above type of thing. Those are the 10 things I tend to write down, and I like to do it in the evening because I like to have that in my mind and that intention before I go to bed, and then sort of ponder those things. A lot of people like to get up right away and write their morning journal. And, I think there's no right or wrong time. I think the best time to journal or have gratitude is whenever you're going to do it, type of thing. So that's kind of my practice, at least how it is sort of right now at a high level.
Thank you, Deepak. That's really wonderful. Michal, would you like to add something to what you do, or any comments, anything that you think is relevant?
Yeah, so Deepak said something really great right now when he said, the best time, there is no best time. The best time is what works for you. The best time is the time you'll do it. The best time is the time you'll feel it. But those are small things. Journaling and gratitude are small things that make huge differences, I think, especially to our stress levels at this time, right? And they've done studies on gratitude with criminals and with inmates, and how it's changed their stress levels. We know that, like meditation, gratitude works. I think it's this acknowledgement of what we have, rather than us humans being this meaning-making machine that we always are. So for me, gratitude is a big thing on a daily basis as well. That and my yoga practice. And, you know, when you really, your yoga practice can be a moving meditation. And if you can get the breath work done, it is a wonderful, wonderful way to clear and calm the mind. So for me, those are the two things that every day, no matter what, I try and do. Even if it's just a few minutes of breathing or yoga and definite gratitude. I, like Deepak, like to do my gratitude in the evening. It's what happened to me today. And I focus on I always focus on three things, three specific things. One thing, what am I grateful for for me? What am I grateful for in my immediate surroundings? And what am I grateful for on this earth and on the planet? And I mean, if more come to me, of course, but for me, I like to focus on those three things.
Thank you, Mikhail. That's fantastic.
Can I just jump in again? Sorry,
Yeah.
I forgot a couple things. Well, one thing Mikhail brought up. There's actually been studies where in some private schools in the U.S. where they've implemented meditation, and they've actually found that test scores have improved. You know, just like a half hour, 45-minute daily meditation, 5 days a week. So I think there's obviously power to that. The other thing I would be remiss not to mention is that in the first 2 weeks of sort of being bound at home, where we had no support from the schools, where they were still trying to get it sorted out, we took it upon ourselves to try and keep up with this kid's schoolwork, and let's do some math and, you know, science and whatever, and trying to keep them occupied. But one thing I did, and they always have to have movement during the day, and sometimes that's just playing outside, sometimes that's a silly dance party with dad. But what I also implemented, and I think all schools should do this, but that's just me, is what we instituted self-care time. So they have to do half an hour at least of self-care. So that could be yoga. And as I mentioned yesterday, I'm not a yoga person, but they think they know what yoga is, so I let them do their yoga thing. They either have to go in the sauna or they have to do meditation. So I'm trying to instill these things with them now. And even now we are getting some direction from the school of assignments to keep them going. They still have to do their self-care half an hour per day. And this is something we're just going to carry on now, go forward. Because I think these are good skills to instill now. I found, you know, meditation in my 40s. I found gratitude in my 40s. You know, many of these things, I mean, I didn't go through my health journey into my late 30s, and many things, you know, what I'm shaped now is shaped by that journey, which was later in life. But I can't even fathom how my life could have been different if I, you know, knew some of these things or some of these modalities earlier in life. So I'm just trying to instill that in my children, and not saying that's a recommendation for anyone. You got to do what's right for you and your family, but that's just something I want to share that we're doing in our household.
Thank you, Deepak. That's really so, you know, wonderful. So you mentioned the, you know, enhancement in academic performance. So this was, again, long time ago, they were doing this study, and I think it was Dr. Benson Center, if I'm not wrong. So obviously in any medical study, you have to have a group of people who have similar characteristics, but the one thing they're testing was this, they were testing meditation. So they had to find people who were not meditating. Now, obviously, this was a group of people who were like high achievers, master's degree, PhDs, academics. They found it very difficult to find a control group who did not meditate, but had the same levels of education and all that. So that goes to tell us, you know, how anyone who's interested in better brain function, success, whatever you define it as, is into meditation. And I think recently Bill Gates has started meditation as well. I think he got Andy Puddicombe to help him. So that just goes to, you know, if so many people are doing it, my point is, if you have never done it before, why not just try? So I'll just share a few things that I do. And again, we are sharing all these ideas so that all of you can, you know, take something away from these 4 days of, you know, webinars. And maybe all you are going to implement is one thing, but that is fine. You know, it doesn't matter really whether you're implementing everything, you're implementing one thing, you're implementing nothing at all now, but you want to implement later. So I was trying to think how many years I've been a meditator. So it's more than 10, 11 years now. Again, I have not reached the 10,000 hour level that, you know, Buddhist monks have reached, but what meditation has given me is, again, what Deepak said. Clarity in thinking is one of the big ones. And when I started off, I went to a workshop in Mumbai, and this was wonderful. So I tried a whole bunch of different workshops. Now, one workshop, and I'm not a vegetarian. So one workshop, they said all of us should become vegetarian, and I was really mad because the vegetarianism had nothing to do with the meditation part of it. So my point is, find what you will like. And the other thing I liked is this particular meditation, which I finally started on. They didn't insist that I should sit, cross-legged on the floor or something. They said, sit wherever you're comfortable, sit on a chair, sit wherever you will not get distracted because, your back is hurting, you're getting pins and needles and all of that. So that was the other thing I liked. And few months ago, I decided I've been meditating, for a long time, but usually it's about 15, 20 minutes. So I said, no, if I'm telling people that they need to meditate for half an hour to 45 minutes, I should start implementing that for myself. What I found is, before that, I never used to use a timer. So without a timer, I would, meditate and just decide, okay, this is it. This is the end of my meditation time. And most of the times it would be around 17, 18 minutes or so. So I decided, okay, I asked some of my friends who are even been meditating much longer. So they suggested I use a timer. So then I found a timer on my phone. So the one I use is an app called Insight Timer, INSIGHT TIMER. You can check, it's available on Android and iPhone as well. And it has a whole bunch of free resources. So it has a timer, and interestingly, that timer works even when my phone is on flight mode. So during meditation, I put my phone in flight mode because I don't want to be disturbed by anything. And what I realized is, because of the timer, I could increase my meditation time, number one. And again, I have to admit, I don't do half an hour every day. Most days it becomes more of a 15 minutes one, because if I go to bed late at night, obviously I wake up late and then I'm in a hurry to get to work. Get to work means get to my laptop. So, but my point is, if you want to increase your meditation time, then using a timer may be something that will help you. And moreover, this particular, I'm somebody who loves, who likes technology. So the other thing that this app lets me do is I can export my meditation time. So I can see how many days I had meditated, and I'm trying to correlate the meditation time with my resting heart rate, with sleep and everything together. So that is something for the future, but that is something I'm working on. And the other thing I do is, one thing I do is I don't watch the news. So many people say, oh, the news doesn't affect me really. I said, really? I mean, all that negative information, you feel it's not doing anything to you, but science has enough studies to, support that whatever you're exposed to does impact you. You may not be aware of it. So many things we do from like, oh, this is not something I'm doing deliberately, but at the same time, this still has an influence on how you function. So listening to negative news, do you really need, minute by minute update of news? That is number one. Number two, in Asian countries, WhatsApp is very, very common and very popular. The WhatsApp forwards. So I have decided, by default, I'm not going to open a forward unless it's like, I know what it is. So I don't read that stuff. And if someone thinks that, I'm a little abnormal or anything like that, I'm comfortable with that. But it might not be very exciting for a lot of people. But yes, meditation is one thing. Another thing I do is my early morning. My morning time is my me time, because my husband and son don't wake up early in the morning. And I like that alone time. And my morning reading is usually something, like I said, I believe in spirituality. So it's some spiritual reading, and different people like different things. I have some books which I read on a regular basis. So I'll read that, and I'll drink my tea. And most of the time nowadays I've started, doing some kind of a little bit of exercise before I, look into my phone and all the WhatsApp and emails and everything. So that I set the intention for the day. I don't like rushing and hurrying in the mornings. So, and sometimes I will even meditate, anytime, other time of the day, if I feel that, I'm a little anxious. Like today, just before we started the webinar, I thought, okay, I have, 3 minutes. Let me just close my eyes and start with, a little bit of this. And I'm not even sure it's going to help a lot, but a lot of people have experienced that, and I have experienced that before. When I'm doing a day-long, workshop or something, I usually make sure that I have meditated well and have slept well the previous night. If people are coming to listen to me for the whole day, I must make sure that I'm there 110%. So that is one. The other thing is all the stuff that we discussed now. And I think I realize now, I think I should go back to writing my gratitudes once again. So I used to do it sometime back and then I gave up. So that was one more thing. Now, between guided meditation and silent meditation, each person is different. When I started off, I had started with some guided meditation, but now I realize I like my inner silence a whole lot more than, having someone saying something. So I put earplugs and, I can't hear anything else from the outside. That is what I like. But again, my suggestion for you, if you have never done any of this ever before, no mindfulness practice, no guided meditation, nothing, just try with those, whole bunch of free apps are available now in Google, Android phones, or even an iPhone. Before you make a commitment to buy something, I always suggest that try out for a long time and see which one works for you. So that would be my recommendation. And if I had my way, I would put everyone onto meditation for sure. But I know not everybody's going to do that. My husband's one of those people who will never meditate. Okay. Okay,
so I'll jump in here.
Yeah.
So we do have one question. So I just want to reiterate to everyone, if you have any questions about any of the things we've talked about today, please just start putting them in. We'll get to questions here shortly. I just a couple comments on what you just said there, Dr. Carr. So you said about being, maybe abnormal or not normal. The view I take on that is, if you look at the world today, whether it be health, weight, instances of diabetes, et cetera. So I don't want to be normal. I already said earlier, I want to be exceptional. I want to be above the normal. So if everyone's doing this and following the news and by not doing things or keeping negative things out of your mind, I'm happy to be not normal in that. I'm happy to be the black sheep, if you will. So that's one thing I wanted to mention. And then I also wanted to, I guess I didn't quite say this, but you reminded me, is that, again, the best time to do meditation is whenever you get a chance to do it. I have found myself, and I've done it all times of day, some of it via experiment, sometimes just via circumstance, but I find for me personally, and everyone's going to be different, if I do it in the morning, it just sets me for the whole day. I'm a lot better now, as I said, I'm nearly 3 years in, but when I was kind of at the beginning of that, and my wife could actually notice a change, and if I didn't get it in the morning and I was getting a little agitated, she's like, have you done your meditation today? No, I haven't actually. She's like, maybe you should go do it. And I was starting to get a little frustrated or angry or something like that. So now I try to almost always do it first thing when I just find it just sets me for the day. It takes a lot more to get me frustrated or angry if I've done it in the morning. So I said earlier that we would talk about the special bonuses before we went to the Q&A. So I think this is a good time to jump in with that. And we have one question again. Please throw in some questions here. So I'll just reiterate that all these recordings, to everyone who's registered, we will send out early next week with the links to our websites, et cetera, for the special bonuses. We'll reiterate that. All the links today, or any of that I've discussed through the 4 days, some of the research papers, et cetera, we'll send that all out early next week. So on behalf of Kareem, who is our speaker on Monday, the first day of the series on sleep, Kareem is offering 2 bonuses. So they have a stress course. It's a 16-week stress course, and goes into breathing and a lot of the things we've talked about today and then some. So he's offering 50% off of that course for anyone who's registered, who's interested in that, and also 50% off of a one-on-one consultation with him. So that's the bonuses from Kareem, who's our guest speaker day 1. For myself, I'm offering as a bonus to everyone who's been on these calls is 50% off of any one of my services that I offer. So if you go to my website, you'll see some of my packages. There are a lot of things, other services that I offer that are not listed on the website. So just if you're interested, reach out and we can just have a no obligation call. But I am offering 50% off of any one of my services to anyone who's participated in this series. And then Dr. Carl, I'll let you talk about your offer there.
Okay, so our offer, and again, you'll get links on the emails for that. We are offering an shortened MDS program. So the MDS program is an 8 weeks program. So this is going to be 4 weeks only at a dramatically discounted price. You'll receive the details on email. And I think we'll go, so you'll receive a lot of stuff on email, all the links that I had promised and how to contact Kareem or Deepak, you'll get their contact details as well. So the one question that we have here is, it's not directly related to the mind, but what he's saying is not a question, but a statement. I find much better focus and attention when I eat animal food. Oh, Mikhail's not on the call now. That is, opening a lot of different areas. And again, I'm just, I'm just making a few comments on this. One is, a lot of people are vegetarians in India, particularly, who are vegetarians from birth. So that's a different story. Some people are vegetarians because they find that, it's unethical in the way animals are treated. And I fully understand and appreciate that. Then the third group of people are vegetarian because they think it's a healthier way to eat. So again, Mikhail and I have gone into all of that. And if you find that eating animal food helps you, definitely go for it. But at the same time, I'm not saying that this is the, if I am eating meat and fish, everyone should do it. No, there is no shoulds in our world. So my point is, if that helps you, definitely go ahead and do that. But you need to figure out what works for you. And if you have changed the way you eat because of, certain reasons, make sure that those reasons are really justified. Like I say this to a lot of people. Oh, Indians are vegetarians and, they don't have, I said, they are some of the sickest people on earth. So you can't say that vegetarianism is like, is helping their health. So it's different things for different people. And there is a doctor in the US whose practice is exclusively South Asians. And he says his vegetarian patients are the sickest of the lot. South Asians have, heart disease earlier and all those things. So if you are thinking that vegetarianism is going to make you healthier, I'm not talking about the ethics or any of that. You may need to, do a little deeper dive on that and really figure out whether it's really helping your health. If you're culturally a vegetarian from birth, that's a different story. It's very unlikely, anyone who's never eaten meat and fish in their life, suddenly at, middle age, they're going to start eating all of that. But definitely what you said is the experience which a lot of people have shared with us, and Mikhail could have, I think we have covered that on a podcast or a video. And would anyone like to share what they do for their self-care?
Yeah, please, everyone, do share in either the chat or Q&A, but I'll may just tackle that last one. I know it wasn't a question, it was more of a statement, but I'll take a little bit of a different slant on that. So certainly with the people that I work with, they want performance, and it could be in many forms. A lot of times it's cognitive, and they're executives and that sort of thing, and they want just that extra 1%, extra 5% cognitively. Perform better, etc. So I do with my clients where appropriate. I guess it's always very individualized. Into nootropics and that sort of thing for cognitive performance. But what I will say, to the comment here as far as eating animals. So I won't specifically say animal protein per se, but I do find that having saturated fat, again, those ketone bodies or what have you, does help many people's cognitive function, myself included. If I nearly almost always have a little bit of, and this came up day before yesterday on the nutrition, day 2 on nutrition, in our discussion at the end with Mikhail, I will add a little bit of coconut oil or MCT oil to my coffee first thing in the morning just to get that little extra boost. Now, there's a product I do believe in it, but I'm not selling it, I'm not endorsing it or whatever. Brain octane oil, which is a refined MCT oil that takes is primarily C8, the molecule. If I really want to focus, do writing, be in the zone, so to speak, I will take that when I know that's my intention for that day. especially early in the morning before the kids get up and there's distraction. That's when I really want to be focused and be high productivity for for a couple hours. I will take that with my coffee and really boost up. So whenever I do writing, blog posts, etc., that's what I take. So again, it's not an animal protein question per se, but I think it's really just a fat. I think that you can almost say it's a fat question. Fat fuels your body, fat fuels your mind, and that's certainly something I've seen. So we don't have any other questions or chat questions
No, we
here.
don't.
Maybe we'll just give another minute or so if no one else wants to jump in.
Animal protein question. Michal has something. She talks about the carnivore diet, and she's been encouraging me. But if all of you think that just because we know about a lot of stuff that we are doing everything, no, I'm still resisting Michal's carnivore diet. So carnivore diet is meat only, no vegetables, no nothing. And I think I would just like to try it just as an experiment. Deepak, have you ever tried just the carnivore diet?
No. So it's kind of a little bit off topic of today's mind body,
Yeah.
but first of all, most people, much like keto as well, most people have a misunderstanding of what that means. So a true carnivore diet is nose to tail. You're eating everything of the animal. You're eating the organs. You're eating, you get all the liver and all that. It's not muscle meat. Most people, especially in North America, for sure, Western world, they only eat muscle meat. They eat those cuts, and they're missing out on a lot of the other stuff and a lot of the vitamins and nutrient rich density, nutrient dense of the other parts of the animal that we typically discard or we don't buy type of thing. So true carnivore diet is nose to tail. You're eating the whole animal, which is evolutionary. That's what our ancestors would have ate. I guess we don't really know this 100% for sure, but there's been suggestions that early man, once they've domesticated animals and stuff, they would eat the organs and give the muscle meat to the dogs. They wouldn't even eat the muscle meat because that's the least nutrient dense. They'd give that to the animals, dogs specifically, or cats, or what have you. So that's what a true carnivore diet is. That's not what most people think. I've never tried it myself. I think there is, I guess the big argument against or for the carnivore diet and not eating plants is some of the plant defense mechanisms that could be harmful, could be stressors. I don't disagree with that, but I think the phytonutrients, it's a balance that you get from vegetables plays a role. So I think someone like a Ben Greenfield, who's experienced, he does a nose to tail carnivore diet or at least right now, that's what he's doing is, let's call it 80% that way. Again, a lot of liver, a lot of organ meat, etc. And then he'll have some, high quality plant foods. So again, there's a lot of misconception on what the carnivore diet is, much like there is with the keto diet. And I won't delve into that now, and Michal can talk more about it. But I actually have on my YouTube channel a keto expert that I interviewed on what's a true keto versus dirty keto diet, amongst other topics we talked
Yeah,
about. So.
that's a great one. Okay, so thank you everybody for investing your time with us, and you will receive all the stuff by email in the next Monday or Tuesday by the time we edit the videos and leave out all our chit-chatting before before the webinar started, all of that. And if you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email. My email is the MDS email, so that's Michal and me, info at mdsprogram.com. And Deepak, will you just state your best email to get hold
Sure.
of?
So yeah, I'll just really, again, so it's perfectly clear for everyone. You'll get all the links for these 4 videos. And someone just popped in. Thank you so much. You're gratitude for coming on. Appreciate that. You get the links for all the 4 videos, links to our websites, our special offers that we said, and then any of the references that Dr. Carr had in her presentations for papers, etc. coming early next week. Best place to get a hold of me. My email address is info at Deepak Saini Health. So my first name, my last name, and health. DEEPAK SAINI health.com. I have my YouTube channel under the same, and just Google my name and health at the end of it, and you'll find me on all social media channels. But again, we'll have all the links on there in the email that comes out. And please reach out if any questions or what have you. Just happy to help. I think in this time of where we're at now, I mean, I think we all come from a place of service and gratitude anyway, but in this time we're at now, where a lot of people are hurting, a lot of people are scared, there's a lot of stress, a lot of negativity in the news, as we mentioned earlier. You know, like, reach out, whether it's one of us or someone else, you know, your pastor, your minister, a friend, a family member, hey, even a complete stranger, just reach out and talk and get it all out there. Write your expressive journal, whatever. Just, you know, mental health is always important. It's even more important right now. And that's just what I'd like to leave everyone off with. Just, you know, take care of yourselves. More so now than even normal times, when you should be taking care of yourself anyway. So
Thank you, Deepak. That was fantastic. Okay, so bye now.
bye.